Picture two people. Same Tuesday. Same traffic. Same inbox full of stuff nobody's dealt with yet. Same dull weight behind the eyes that comes from a week that's asked too much and given back almost nothing. One of them gets home and just sinks into the couch, scrolls for an hour, feels vaguely worse, goes to bed unresolved, wakes up and does it again. The other does something that takes less than 60 seconds, and something shifts. Not dramatically, not like a movie moment, but measurably. The edge comes off, the body settles, the mind stops bracing for the next thing. Same Tuesday. Two completely different nervous systems by the end of it. I want to talk about what she did differently, because it's not what most people expect. And honestly, once you get the neuroscience underneath it, it kind of changes how you think about emotion entirely. Not as something that happens to you, but as something you actually have way more access to than anyone ever told you. Here's the thing I keep coming back to when I research this stuff. Most people believe they need to change their circumstances, to change how they feel. New job, different relationship, better weather, more time. And there's this whole body of research quietly saying something else. Saying that the relationship between your body and your emotional state runs both ways. That you don't have to wait for the outside world to shift before your inner world can. Neuroscientist Jill Bolte Taylor has pointed out that the chemical lifespan of an emotion in the body is roughly 90 seconds. After that, it's your thoughts keeping it alive. Read that again. The raw chemistry of an emotion, or the cortisol spike, the adrenaline surge, has a natural expiration point. What extends it past that is not the original trigger. It's you, your attention, your rumination, your habit of staying inside the feeling without ever interrupting it, which is kind of wild when you think about it, because it means the window to change how you feel is almost always open. The question is whether you know how to step through it. So, 5 habits. Each one takes 60 seconds or less. Each has real neuroscience behind it, and none of them require a different life to work. The first one is a double inhale, not just a deep breath. 2 consecutive inhales through the nose. Self-feel the lungs on the first one, then top them off on the second. Followed by a long, slow exhale through the mouth. Researchers call this the physiological sigh. A sigh isn't just a bigger breath. It's a distinct respiratory pattern with its own neural trigger and measurable effects on heart rate, blood pressure, and brain state. When you're stressed, your breathing gets shallow and fast. Carbon dioxide builds up slightly, oxygen exchange drops, and your brainstem registers the imbalance. The sigh-generating circuit fires in response, producing a deep breath that restores normal gas exchange and basically resets your breathing. When you do this deliberately, when you trigger it consciously instead of waiting for it to happen on its own, you're borrowing your brain's emergency reset mechanism and using it on demand. Research published in Cell Reports Medicine in 2023 by the Huberman Lab found that cyclic physiological sighing performed for 5 minutes daily produced greater reductions in anxiety and physiological arousal than mindfulness meditation. 5 minutes gets you long-term change. But even one deliberate double inhale shifts something in the moment. Breathe in for 4 counts through your nose, out for 6 through your mouth. Longer exhales activate the parasympathetic system, calming things down within minutes. This isn't about relaxation as some abstract concept. This is a specific circuit in your brainstem that you can activate right now, at your desk, in your car, in the middle of an argument. The second habit is cold water on your face. I know. Sounds too simple. Stick with me. Brief cold exposure, quote, specifically splashing cold water on the face, activates something called the dive reflex, which rapidly slows heart rate through the vagus nerve. The effect is immediate. Every mammal has this. When your face contacts cold water, your nervous system kicks off a cascade that was originally designed to help animals survive underwater, slowing the heart, conserving oxygen, shifting physiological priority. 30 seconds of cold water on your face triggers this reflex almost immediately. It's genuinely the fastest physiological reset available without medication. The person who walks into the bathroom mid-panic attack and turns on the cold tap isn't doing something random. They're activating a mechanism hardwired into their nervous system for millions of years. 30 seconds. That's all it takes to interrupt a spiral that might otherwise run for hours. The third habit is where it gets a little strange, and this is the part most people miss. It's naming what you feel, not venting, not journaling for 20 minutes, just pausing and finding the precise word for the emotional state you're actually in. Not "I feel bad," not "I'm stressed." Specifically, am I anxious, ashamed, overwhelmed, lonely, irritated, deflated? Here's what the research found. The simple act of translating an emotion into words activates the prefrontal cortex and reduces amygdala activation, then the part of your brain generating the alarm response. You're not suppressing the emotion, you're transforming it. Research from Dr. Matthew Lieberman's lab at UCLA showed that when people identify and name their emotions, amygdala activity decreases while prefrontal cortex activity increases. In one experiment, participants viewed emotional faces during fMRI scans. When asked to label what they saw, their brains shifted. The amygdala, the threat detector, quieted down. The prefrontal cortex, the rational, regulatory system, lit up. Amygdala activation dropped by up to 30% compared to simple observation. Think about what that means. You don't need to resolve the emotion. You don't need to fully understand it or fix whatever caused it. You just name it accurately, and your brain does the rest. But here's the catch. Precision matters. I feel bad doesn't do it. I feel embarrassed about what I said in that meeting does. The granularity is actually the mechanism. Two people, same event. One says, "I feel terrible," and stays inside the storm. The other pauses, lands on "I feel ashamed" and a little defensive, and watches the storm reduce to just weather. The fourth habit is movement, but not the kind you're thinking, not a workout, not a run. 30 seconds. Literally. Research shows even very short bouts of moderate activity can lift energy and mood. Think tiny 30 seconds of lunges while your coffee brews, pacing during a call, dancing to one song while you brush your teeth. Even 3 minutes of movement triggers endorphin release and reduces cortisol. And studies show these brief bursts are actually more effective for mood than saving everything for one longer session. Most people have decided movement only counts when it's formal, scheduled, when it's changing their body over time. So they sit in a bad mood for 3 hours, waiting to feel differently, while their nervous system is quietly asking for something it could get in 30 seconds. The body isn't separate from the emotional system. It is the emotional system. Change the body's state, cool, even slightly, even briefly, and the emotional state follows. The fifth habit is the one that tends to surprise people. A smile, or at least the deliberate shape of one. Before you roll your eyes, I want to tell you about a research project that took almost 2 decades to settle. A 2022 multi-lab study, the Many Smiles Collaboration, published in Nature Human Behaviour. Across 26 labs and nearly 4,000 participants in 19 countries, deliberately posing a smile produced a small but reliable boost in reported happiness. The way our face moves can actually influence how we feel. Facial expressions don't just express emotions, they send feedback to the brain, which then influences our emotional state. The effect isn't magic. It's not a cure for depression or grief, but it's real. It's measurable. And the mechanism matters. Your brain isn't only causing your face to move. Your face is also causing your brain to respond. The feedback runs both ways. This is the facial feedback hypothesis, and after decades of mixed results, the large-scale evidence now confirms it. What this means practically, the person who walks into a hard conversation, having deliberately relaxed their face, even smiled slightly, isn't being fake. They're doing something physiologically intelligent. They're sending their brain a signal before the situation sends one first. Now, I want to come back to those two people from the beginning. Same Tuesday, same weight, same life. One of them is waiting for circumstances to change before they allow themselves to feel differently. Waiting for the problem to be solved, the situation to shift, the world to give them permission to exhale. The other has understood something the research has been saying quietly for decades, that your emotional state isn't a readout of your circumstances. It's a product of your nervous system. And your nervous system has inputs you can actually reach. Research by Wendy Wood at the University of Southern California suggests that most human behavior runs on automatic routines, shaped by context rather than conscious intention. The habits we carry, something to note, including how we handle emotional states, run on autopilot until we understand the mechanism well enough to interrupt it. These 5 things, the physiological sigh, the cold water, the precise naming of what you feel, 30 seconds of movement, and the deliberate shape of your expression, sniffed, aren't life hacks, they're access points. Small science-backed moments where your conscious awareness can reach into an otherwise automatic system and change what happens next. You don't need a different life to feel differently. You need a different 60 seconds. The question isn't whether these habits work. The research is pretty clear on that. The question is which world you're currently living in. The one where you wait or the one where you reach.